all been joining on a journey of finding the hidden life with Christ, digging deeper into discovering Jesus Christ. The culmination of this whole series is Easter. We want to inform you about Easter. The Sunday before, Palm Sunday, we'll have 2 services as regular. On Good Friday, we'll have a family-friendly service here on Friday night. And then again, we'll have our Easter services on Sunday. Keep on coming. Bring your neighbors and friends too. We want them to see the true story about Easter. We are hosting the Northern New England Spring Conference, and it'll be all day on a Saturday morning from 9 until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Come get away, spend time with girls. The speaker's going to be fabulous. And guess what? Sign-ups are today in the lobby.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Tonight is the Pinewood Derby event at Church of the Rock. Come one and all to this wonderful family event. Hope to see you there.
First, I want to thank you all for helping out with Martha's Kitchen. You've already picked up your tickets, so I can say thank you in advance. You're really blessing those in our community, and we're so thankful that you can help us out. Now, on another note, ladies, we have our GNO, which stands for Girls Night Out, and it's coming up this Thursday night, and it's called the Spiritual Spa Night. We are going to have hot rocks to warm your toes, paraffin hand wax, shoulder and neck massages, giggles and laugh with your friends, and a prayer station, some worship time, a night that you deserve. And guess what else? It's free. Pamper yourself this Thursday night. Come join us.
So she woke up that morning ready to run the race of her life, waiting for the starting gun with thousands of other people, other runners. She pictured the next 26 miles, fine-tuning her strategy. Anybody that ever sets out to run a marathon started planning for that months and months in advance. All kinds of training regimes and diet regimes, food regimes, all sorts of special tactics and running this many miles and this much rest and running some more miles and this much rest. And she'd done all the right things. She was in perfect shape for this race. And so as she stood there among those other thousands of runners, she's thinking, this could be, no, it will be, the day I run the greatest race of my life. And then at mile 20, it happened. Her energy level crashed through the floor. Without warning, her feet felt like they turned to lead. She had nothing left. She was now living the marathoner's worst nightmare. She had just hit the wall, bonked, blown up, race over. Hitting the wall is a well-known phenomenon for long-distance runners and cyclists. It happens when the athlete's reserves of sugar stored as glycogen, stored in the muscles, just about completely runs out. Long-distance runners depend on this stored sugar. It's stored all throughout the body and in the liver. They rely on this to keep going over these long endurance events. But after 2 hours or so of very intense exercise, such as running a marathon, that stored sugar or glycogen can be completely exhausted. And that exhaustion hits sort of the way you find out that you ran out of gas in your car. You're going and going and going and going, and all of a sudden, pop, 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 and then you're on the side of the road. And that's exactly what happens to the runner or the cyclist when they hit the wall. They suddenly become hypoglycemic, and they just will completely collapse, cannot not even think about getting up and moving another step. When that happens, the runners say that you bonk, you hit the wall, you blow up. The cure for hitting the wall requires 2 things: food and rest. You get more sugar stored up in your liver and your muscles, and you're good to go. But at that particular moment, you're not going to be running any more of the race. You're not going to be cycling anymore. You simply need to recover. Now, Robert Quinn says that when we are on a journey of deep change or transformation, one that's taking us away from where we've been to somewhere we've never been before, even more importantly, one that is changing us from who we were to who we're going to be in the future. When we're being transformed, we face pitfalls that can blow up our race. He says the first one, we looked at this a few weeks ago, is the pitfall of illusion. Now think about a runner, and you see this all the time. I watched on the Olympics, time and time again, this failure showed up. the runner or the skater or the skier, the cross-country skier, who dashes out to the front of the pack and maybe leads for the first 5, 10, 15 laps. And perhaps you have to just wonder if in his or her mind there's this illusion of, if I just get enough of a lead, I'm going to win. Well, of course, you know what happens. They get reeled in by the other runners who have saved up their energy. And at the time when this person who's been leading the whole race, the time that they really need to go make that final push, they're already done. The illusion of getting that big jump caused them to fail to be in a good position at the end of the race. And the same thing can happen for us as we see a change in our lives, we feel the need to do something new. If we go down a path of illusion or fantasy or try to live out a daydream, try to copy somebody else, get filled with pride or get filled with sort of a naive kind of this is an easy type of thinking, we can bite off more than we can chew. We may get ourselves launched into something that we can't finish. So Robert Quinn says we've got to be very careful not to go down the path of illusion when we're starting this journey of deep change. The second pitfall is that of panic. We talked about that last week. You know, a racer, someone in a race knows that there's going to come a time when they have to make their move. Let's say you don't give in to illusion and you stay back in the pack and you're going around and lap after lap. At some point, you need to be willing to jump out of that mode and start using the energy you have. You've got to take the risk. You've got to begin to make that move, maybe to go to the outside or try to move into the inside and start to use up those reserves, hoping that you're going to have enough left to get you to the finish line. But if you're in a panic at that point and you decide to play it safe, you're going to find that when you get to the last stretch of the race, the person out front has too much of a lead. You can never catch up with them. And Robert Quinn says this is a fear that we have. This issue of panic will set in when we're facing a big change in our lives and we suddenly get right up to the brink and then we look at it and go, oh, I can't do that. No, that's something I don't do. I was out skiing with my grandchildren. That's a transformative experience, by the way. They are transforming into a 12-year-old, 10-year-old. That means A, fearless, B, instantaneous reflexes. They have never been afraid on a mountain. I mean, because they started when they were little. And they're dragging an old man around the mountain. And they've been coached. I know that they have been coached. Because they've already become very, solicitous. Well, Grandpa, are you okay with this trail, Grandpa? It's like, who told you to say that? I know who told them. I said, oh, no, I'm fine. So we're dealing with a little illusion here. Well, we were going down the trail Friday, and it was a great little trail. It has a little nice, calm little name called Black Bear. And it was all snow, cliff. Snow. And the cliff was just sort of rounded and covered with ice. And about like that, right? Looked like about that, but no, it's about like that. And grandson, 12-year-old, just right over it. My turn. It doesn't get any easier the longer you stand there. And the 12-year-old kid's down there being nice because he's got the old guy up there. Don't want to break the old guy. There wasn't any other way to do this little patch. I mean, there was not even a possible wimpy way to do this thing. It just had to overcome the panic. Okay, here we go. If it breaks, it breaks, and it was fine. But panic can stop you. Can stop you dead in your tracks. And then you can abort the whole mission and miss out what God had for you. And the third pitfall, the one we look at today, is exhaustion. Exhaustion stalks us especially when we've had the breakthrough and when we're functioning on a whole new level. And we feel lots of energy, maybe lots of enthusiasm. Things are finally clicking. And if we just keep pushing, we'll conquer the world. Have you ever been there? Oh, that's the worst of all. That's when your pupils become little points. And when you have got it all locked in, and you are excited, and you're going, and then that's when my wife starts saying, you need a day off. Oh, no, I got this. And she's like, Because what's going to happen is I'm going to bonk. I'm going to hit the wall, spiritually speaking, emotionally. I'm going to get to a point where doing good things for all the right reasons and pushing on and conquering the world, and all of a sudden, collapse. We call it burnout. A lot of times when we think about the work that we do with people, maybe you're in the medical profession, and you've just been putting in way too many hours, too much overtime, too many needs, too many people, and one day you wake up and you just don't want to see anything that has to do with a hospital. Or maybe it happens in a school setting, or maybe it happens in a ministry setting. Maybe it's just that happens at home when you just get burned out. Doing good things. And it's hard, it's tricky, because you say, but I'm doing all the right things. I mean, I haven't been taking any time off. I've been working for you, Lord. And then the Lord has to have a little chat with us about what it means to avoid the pitfall of exhaustion. Now, Jesus' disciples were in the danger of falling into precisely this trap of exhaustion when they came back from an extended 2-person mission to the villages in Galilee. Jesus had sent them out 2 by 2. He'd been showing them how to do the job. Now he said, now it's your turn to go do it. And so there were 6 teams going out doing what Jesus normally did. And he gave them specific instructions to travel light. I want to focus on that one little piece. In Mark 6, 8, and 9, these were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except a staff, like a walking stick. No bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. So they had the clothes on their backs, sandals, and a walking stick. That's it. Now, these instructions are kind of odd, and people have sort of speculated on why Jesus restricted them in this way. Well, I found an excellent explanation. Namely, that these were Exodus journey instructions. These instructions match almost perfectly the instructions that God gave to the Israelites when they took their Exodus journey. You may remember, they were to be ready to leave in the middle of the night with no warning. The word was going to come, go. And they had to already be ready to head out. Everything packed, ready to go. And we read in Exodus 12, verse 11, the instructions that Moses gave to the people. Speaking of the meal, the Passover meal, this was this last fast food meal before they hit the road. This is how you are to eat it. With your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. So in a way, Jesus was sending out his disciples to do the same thing, to go do a new Exodus journey. They went out doing Jesus' work. They announced the arrival of God's kingdom. They healed the sick. They cast evil spirits out of troubled people. And in their journey, because they had no money, they had no bread, they had not even an extra shirt, they were totally dependent upon God to guide them and to meet their needs. In fact, there are actually instructions given at the beginning of chapter 6 about how long to stay in somebody's house, why you would stay there, what to do if people reject you, because this was going to be an Exodus journey, depending on God for food every day, just like Israel did. So when they finally come back to Jesus, the crowds are bigger than ever. Why? Well, Jesus had just magnified his own ministry by a factor of 6. So instead of Jesus and the disciples being in a village and then another village and another village, it was happening in 6 villages every day, and then maybe 6 more villages the next day. And they were blanketing the whole area, and crowds began to become exponential in size. When the disciples came back, Jesus could see these guys were done. They needed a rest. He says in verse 31, then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, Jesus said to them, the disciples, come with me by yourselves to a desert place and get some rest. See, right at that moment, Jesus could see, if we push this any further, these guys are going to hit the wall. In fact, they're probably already getting there, as we will see. Mark tells us that they got in a boat, and they went to a desert place. And he uses this term, desert place. It's translated in various ways in your NIV. I've amended the translation so that you get what's going on here, because Mark is telling us very clearly this was a desert place. He's pointing us to that Exodus journey. They went to a desert place where they could be by themselves, but not before the locals caught wind of their plan. So we read in verse 33, but many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. And that raises a question. Did Jesus fail in his mission to give his disciples some much needed rest? It was a great idea. Get the guys away, have a little retreat. But reading the story, it looks like the whole plan just blew up, and even Jesus lost control of the situation. So did he fail in giving his disciples some rest? It looks to me like they jumped from the frying pan to the fire. They came back exhausted, got in the boat, only to be met with a welcoming committee of even more people. And I can only imagine how their hearts must have sunk when they saw this gigantic crowd lining the shore as they were rowing the boat to hit the beach and get out where they thought they were going to be able to just get some rest. So much for a quiet time in a desert place. Now, this needy crowd, which had followed them, evoked two very different responses from Jesus and his disciples. Mark tells us that Jesus felt a deep compassion for these people because, as Mark puts it, they were like sheep without a shepherd. Verse 34 says they were like sheep without a shepherd. Again, out in a desert place, out where they needed to be cared for, out where there were dangerous things. And they're just milling around, and nobody had a clue, nobody had a plan. So Jesus began teaching them about the coming kingdom of God. He could see the situation, he could see the need, and he realized these people are in a very vulnerable place. They've left home, they've left their jobs, they've left everything that they normally do to come out here. They're looking for something. And Jesus felt compassion for them. However, the disciples had a very different response. In verse 35, we read, "By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him." Quote, "This is a desert place," they said. Again, desert place. "And it's already very late. Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." Now, here are some of the classic signs of burnout. Here are the signs of people who have given too much to their work. They've been around needy people, they've been around needy situations, and they are done. They had nothing for this crowd. The disciples have nothing left to give. They just want to send the crowd of men, women, and children away and let them fend for themselves. I don't care if they're hungry. I don't care if their little kids are hungry. I don't care if it's 10 miles they have to walk. Just, Lord, get them out of here. I don't want to minister to us. Dog, get them all gone. Just send them off. And Jesus is like, this is what we came for? But these guys are done. They're cooked. They have nothing for this situation. If those people are hungry, Lord, it's their problem. They should have thought of it before they came out here. None of you ever felt that way, right? You get to where you're just giving and giving and giving and giving, and all of a sudden it's that next phone call, or it's that next this, or that next that, or that next mommy, and you're just like, "Mommy, you mommy. Where's my mommy?" These guys are burned out. There they were. So did Jesus fail in his mission to give his disciples some much needed rest? I mean, look at this. It was a great plan, but it just got worse the further they went into the plan. And what Jesus does next would seem to only make things worse. He turns the problem back to them. Here they are, burned out, tired of looking at people, just want everything to go away, don't care if the people are hungry or not. And look what Jesus says in verse 37. "But he answered, you give them something to eat." You feed them. You're having such a bad day? Take care of their need. They are incredulous, of course. So now this is when they start talking back, okay? I mean, you can tell when you're burned out. It's when you start talking back to God. I've done that. They answer by saying, "You want us to go buy food for this mob?" My translation. "Don't you remember? You're the one who told us to go out with no money in our pockets. Come on, Lord, get real." Jesus responds by asking not about what they don't have, but he says, "What do you have? How many loaves?" Verse 38. "How many loaves do you have? What do you have? I know you can see how big this problem is. I know you don't have, you just can't see a solution. I know. What do you have? Go check it out. Go and see. Don't talk to me. Go look in your little bags and see what you got left." What a question. Here are some guys who are becoming unglued, and then Jesus asks them to go inventory the pantry. But Jesus, of course, knows exactly what he's doing. He is helping the disciples see that they don't have anything for this situation. Not physically, not spiritually, not emotionally. They aren't going to fix this, but there is going to be another option. So Jesus has them look for what they have, which turns out to be, as you know, 5 little loaves, small ones, and 2 little fish. I mean, it's an absolute roaring joke to put this little tiny, put it on one little picnic plate, right? In front of 5,000 people plus. Why would Jesus do that? He's helping them see whatever God's going to do here, it's not going to be because I'm Mr. High and Mighty. It's because God's doing something special. Because you see, there was another option. And the other option was to see this whole adventure as part of a brand new Exodus journey. Remember that command back at the beginning of their mission? That they were to go out with one set of clothes, their sandals, and a walking stick? That was Exodus equipment for an Exodus journey. They were redoing the Exodus. And now they had gone out into a desert place. Hello? That's where the Exodus went, to the desert. God's kingdom only ever comes through Exodus journeys. That's how it happened in the Old Testament. That's how it happened when Jesus initiated a new Exodus journey. That's why Jesus gives the next command. To have this massive crowd sit down in groups of hundreds and 50s. You may notice that and say, have them all sit down. It's like, what is he doing that for? Well, that arrangement would have been very familiar to a Jewish person of Jesus' time. Because in the Exodus story, when Israel would arrive at its campsite out in the desert, Israel was encamped like a military organization in family groups and tribal groups, all squared up so that they had a camp, an organized camp. You didn't just like everybody show up and pitch your little tent and be on top of each other. They were all organized. And so Jesus has them replicate that out there in the desert. He says, have them all sit in groups. Mark tells us they sat down on the green grass. And it's been suggested that notion of green grass is a little picture of what God had promised to do on that new Exodus that Jesus was bringing, that even the desert would become lush, would become a garden. So here they were in this deserted place, and yet there was lushness and new life and new growth all around, a little hint of what Jesus was about to do. And so the stage was set for Jesus to make a desert place filled with hungry people a place of refreshment and rest. Now, what happened next is a story that all 4 Gospels tell. It's the only miracle other than the resurrection of Jesus that makes it into all 4 Gospels. Let you know how important this story is. With the crowd seated, the 5 loaves and the 2 fish in his hands, Jesus prayed a prayer of thanks, gave thanks to his Father, began breaking the loaves and dividing the fish. And in verse 41 to 43, Mark tells us, then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to all the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces of bread and fish. Again, one of the greatest miracles, ongoing miracles of the old Exodus story, was the fact that God provided food every day. Manna, they called it. The word manna was Hebrew for, what is it? They'd never seen it before. But it was there every day, except on Friday when there was double portion so that they wouldn't have to gather it on the Sabbath. And now Jesus is saying, in a way, it's a new Sabbath coming, a new day of rest, because I'm going to feed you, and there's going to be enough left over to fill 12 baskets. And the 12 baskets are a picture of 12 tribes. No Jewish person would have missed any of these little pointers. This was the new Exodus. Jesus was the new Moses, if you will, bringing God's people out of slavery and to the promised land. But this promised land was now going to be a victory over sin and death itself. Out in a desert place. The only place where God ever does that kind of work. Out in a place where disciples had to come face to face with the fact that they didn't have anything for the situation. But they had God in their midst, and that's all that mattered. Now Jesus is calling you and me to take that same new Exodus journey. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're already on it. When we step out in faith to follow Him, we soon discover that the world is even more broken and more needy than we ever knew. And the more we follow Jesus, and the more we experience His love, the sharper the contrasts become. The more horrible the effects of sin become evident to us. We're no longer minimizing the moral decay of the world around us. We are acutely aware of it. And we can see in our own lives, we can see in our friends and family, we can see in our community, we can see in the world around us so many things that need fixing. It's no wonder that at times we may become completely overwhelmed. We may feel like those disciples. Lord, just send them off to go find something. I don't have anything for this situation. I guess what I'm saying is that if we're following Jesus and we have moved far enough into the process to experience His transformation, we will experience exhaustion if we get off on our own. The problems will just be too great. We can look, maybe you're leading a ministry and you look at the list of people who volunteer and the list is getting smaller. Or maybe you're looking at some organization in town that reaches people's needs, and you just see that there are more and more people coming than the resources could ever possibly meet. I think of our folks working in public education, working with such a wide range of difficulties and problems in the schoolroom, in the classroom, with students with special needs and students with very difficult family situations. And how do these teachers do it day after day, week after week, year after year? Probably never getting the compliment, but being the first one to be blamed if anything goes wrong anywhere in the universe. Recipe for burnout. No matter how hard we work or how fervently we pray, we will always be surrounded by an endless sea of needy people. You see, that's what it's like to be on God's journey in the desert. In the desert, there are no spiritual supermarkets. There are no heavenly spas. We're out there where if we aren't dependent on Jesus, we're toast. It's just not going to work. And when we look inside, we will see that we're just as needy as everybody else. Just because we became followers of Jesus didn't make us superhumans. God didn't issue a cape when you prayed to receive Jesus. Or special heavenly tights, that make you superhero. What those disciples had to come to terms with when they were yelling and screaming about all those stupid, needy people who should have brought food, Jesus says, and how much do you have? You got it all covered? Oh, we got 5 loaves, 2 fish. Okay, let's do the math. There's 12 of you. 5 loaves, 2 fish. That'll do. If you're on a diet. But see, he said, you're just as needy as they are. But you've got something they don't have. You've got the Lord of all creation here in your midst. So just give me that little bit that you have. and watch what God can do with it. And isn't that what he's saying to us? You know, he doesn't ask us when we get up in the morning, you know, get up. Okay, Roland, are you feeling good today? Are you like, you got some extra because I got a big job for you? Oh, you're not? Oh, I guess we'll have to just put it all on hold then till you're really feeling good because you're the guy, Roland. No, I wake up and I'm like, brrr. And he's like, boy, have we got stuff to do today. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding. He says, just give me the little bit you have. Give me your sardines and your 2 anchovies. That's all I'm asking for. Give me your little saltine cracker. But put it in my hands, not in yours. And that's what the disciples saw that day. That they could be as needy as everybody else. All they had to do was one thing the others couldn't do. And that is take their little tiny bit, little bit of faith, a little bit of hope, a little bit of love, even if it's just 2 little fish and 5 little buns, put that in God's hands. And then just let him do what he does in the desert. Isn't that what he wants to do for us? He never wants us to burn out. He never wants us to be exhausted. He never wants us to crash, to bonk, to hit the wall. But when we get to that place where that's the next thing that's going to happen, he says, remember, let's go out to the desert. When we get there, we're going to find it's as needy as everywhere else. But you're going to also be able to look and see you don't have to try to make this work on your own. You can give me the little bit you have. One of the deep lessons that we have to learn as we work on this whole idea of discovering the hidden life is to discover how to be refreshed in God's presence. Right? If we don't learn that, we haven't learned anything. Come unto me, Jesus says, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you, you know the word? Rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For my yoke, like the animals would wear to pull something, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, and you will find rest for your souls. So, the third pitfall, probably the most terrifying of them all, to hit that point of exhaustion. But right then, I want you to remember, it's a desert journey, and Jesus is in control. The Good Shepherd is here. He will take the little bit I have if I'm willing to stand down and let him do the transforming. Can we bow our heads together? And I'm going to ask, as the team comes up, if our prayer team would come up. And here's a special thing with your heads bowed just for a moment here. I just really want you to think about what it would mean for you to just take the little bit that you have and give it over to Jesus at this situation that you're in right now. Maybe for yourself or maybe on behalf of others who desperately need to know his love and his care, his forgiveness, his blessing. It may be a relationship that just is long and hard and never gets any better. Maybe a work environment that is very caustic, a place where there's a lot of cynicism and maybe even a lot of ill will. It may be that you work with maybe those children that have all those overwhelming needs at home, and you want to give them just a taste of God's love and of his presence and his joy, and you want to show that respect for them as little children made in his image. But day after day after day, it seems like you're just swimming against a gigantic river of negativity. Maybe you're just at a place where you look inside and just go, I'm burned out. I don't have what it takes for the next step. It just isn't in there. I just want you to hear this. It's okay. Because it was okay for those disciples to be down to their last crumbs. That was okay. Jesus didn't say to them, what? You are such bad disciples. You didn't bring 6 truckloads of bread. Jesus said, just give me what you have. Just let go. Just let go. Just let me be who I am. The King, the Good Shepherd, Let me take this green pasture and refresh people's souls. Let me lead them by quiet waters. And that's what he wants to do for us. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to stand, and stand right up if you would. And even before we begin to sing, if you're in a place where you could use refreshing, or you know someone who desperately needs that, and you don't have any more than the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, but you want to give them to Jesus, I want you to come down and just stand down here. Okay? I'm going to break out of I'm in my seat and my pew, and just be willing to stand here. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. We're not going to ask you to make any public statements or anything. It's just going to be a way of standing there and just saying, Lord, I'm just going to give this up to you. So who's going to be first? Come on down. There's one. Anybody else? Just come on down. And this is a personal prayer time. This is you and the Lord. We're going to let the band sing for us. You know the special situations you have. It might be your own emptiness, but very likely it's just the hurt that you feel in your heart for maybe where other people are at right now, that you care about and that you want to see touched. And the rest of you, where you are, just plug into the Lord right now. And let's just bow our heads. Father, I pray, Holy Spirit, that you would just guide us during the time of this song, that we could take the little bit that we have and just hand it over to you. Be willing to let you do with our tiny, insignificant, totally inadequate resources, that you do with those what the Creator of the world can do. Take a little boy's lunch and turn it into a banquet for an army. Lord, we just want to empty ourselves before you and let you do your work to restore and refresh. I ask us in Jesus' name.